Question one more time for the video. Why was this month chosen to be such a special month? Because we were saved from the Goyim. We were saved. That happens every month, every year. There's a plot to kill the Jews. And every single time in history, the Jewish people did. What's special about Purim? What is special about this month, that the entire month is a month of happiness?
I think I know the answer, but I think the Jews reconnected to that.
Very good, very beautiful, beautiful. That's what I want to talk about. And the answer lies in three words in the Megillah. Ki yemu v'kibelu haYehudim. The Jews reconnected to Hashem's Torah. There was a re-emergence. There was an awakening. The love that we had for the Torah mitzvot, that we lost before the Purim. And when the miracle of Purim happened, something special about this miracle sparked us to reconnect with Hashem. There was something about the Purim miracle that was different than any other miracle that we had up to that point in Jewish history. And I'd like to discuss today what was so special about the Purim miracle. What was unique? Why was it different? If anything, I would say, if it was up to me, Mishnichnas Nisan Marbi Mesimcha. Nisan was a great month too. Right? We were saved from the Egyptian people. How were we saved? God made these tremendous miracles. 10 plagues, splitting the Yam Suf. How come that didn't cause the Jews to get close to Hashem? What's unique about Purim that caused such a spiritual awakening, that caused such a love, that it transformed the entire month into a month of happiness? What was unique about Purim? And I think the answer is so relevant to our lives. It's so connected to exactly this point in time in history that we are at right now. We know that famously, God's name is not mentioned in the Megillah. You go through the entire Megillah, you will not find Hashem's name mentioned once, which is a little bit odd. Why not? Not once do you see Hashem's name anywhere in the Megillah. And the famous answer is, I'm sure most of you heard this answer, is that this miracle wasn't an open miracle. Hashem's presence was not manifested in this time. When you were living through the Purim miracle, it was not the same as the Purim miracle that you read about today. You read about the Purim miracle today. I have a question, honestly. How do you envision Achashverosh in your mind? How do you envision how Achashverosh was? I'll tell you how I envisioned him growing up. Achashverosh was like this really fat, kind of weird, dumb king. And anyone could push him around. And, one day Haman convinces him this, and one day Mordechai convinces him that, and he's not really such a dangerous fellow. He's, Achashverosh. Not a big deal. Haman's a scary guy. Achashverosh is some joke. You have to understand, the time of Purim was literally like 1939 in Germany. There was a king, a dictator, who was ready to wipe out the entire Jewish people. Could you imagine living in a time like that? Hitler, I was once in the Yad Vashem Museum. They had a diagram of a world map that they found, they recovered from the Nazis. And they drew up a map. You have to see this. They drew up a map with every single country, with the total of how many Jews were in each country. And they had a arrow designing exactly how they were going to go through the world and get every single Jew to kill. And I remember seeing, I think Ireland, there were 500 Jews. And there was a major detour to get there. And then, by the way, that's one of the reasons why Hashem spreads us out so much. So if there's ever a king that wants to, get us, very hard to track us all down. So you have over here Hitler trying to kill the entire Jewish people, very difficult. Achashverosh was very different. He had 127 countries, provinces, and he had every single Jew under his dominion. So when he signed this decree to kill the Jews, it was over. There was no Shah. They were done. If you can imagine, it's hard because Purim is such a happy day in our minds. But you got to imagine, you got to picture the scene. You got to picture the scene. Hitler's coming to town, the Germans are moving in, like that. Worse. And if you go through the Megillah, we read the Megillah in about a half hour. Okay? You think, how long do you think the Megillah took from beginning to end? 6 months? A year?
9
Years. How many?
9.
9, 10, 11, 12. Took a long time to do the Megillah. And each event, when it was happening, looked like it was totally unrelated to the next event. You have this random occurrence of Vashti disrespecting the king. Random, has nothing to do with the Jewish people. Nothing. Achashverosh decides to kill Vashti. Again, sounds normal. Vashti didn't listen to the king murdered her. But if you think about it, it's really not that normal. Achashverosh loved her. He fell into a depression after he killed her. She was his ticket to kingdom. He became king because he married Vashti. She was one of the most beautiful women who lived at that time. Ever. And he kills her. Why did Vashti refuse to come to the party? That's another question. But you could look at it in a very normal way. Oh, everything was normal. This happened, that happened. Chain of events. A bunch of lucky coincidences. Then the king decides to marry Esther. He falls in love with Esther. What are the odds that he's going to fall in love with the Gadol Hador, the leader of the Jewish people's wife or daughter, adopted daughter? Depends on who you go with. Well, what are the odds of that? But if you're reading the Megillah, it sounds like, okay, this happened, that happened, this happened. One night the king can't fall asleep. They bring him the book. Haman happens to come at that time. You read it, it looks like you could almost be fooled that this story happened by itself. And especially if you're living in that time, you don't see any Yad Hashem. You're wondering, when is Hashem going to help us? We're the Jewish people. We're used to sea splitting. We're used to rivers turning into blood. We're used to seeing miracles. What's going on over here? And that was the greatest miracle of all. That Hashem showed us, even in a time of Hester Panim. Hester Panim means we don't see God as openly. Today we live in a time of Hester Panim. You could be fooled that the world all just runs by itself. In a time of Hester Panim, Hashem is still there directing every step of the way. And at the end of the story, when they saw, that's why Vashti didn't come, and that's why Ahasuerus killed her, and that's why he married Esther, and that's why Haman built those gallows, and that's why Haman did this, and that's why Ahasuerus did that. You saw the whole story, you realized, wow, Hashem was running the show from A to Z. There was no greater happiness than that. To see that even when God is, so to speak, upset with us, and we're not zocher, we don't merit to have open miracles, still, He's there in our lives every moment of the way. And even when you don't see Him, it looks like He's not there. He's there. That's the greatest happiness. That was the happiness that caused the Jews to reconnect to Hashem. That was the happiness that caused us to totally renew our relationship with God. Because even when it looked like He wasn't there, He was really there the whole time. And even when it looked like this whole story is a bunch of coincidences, at the end of the Megillah, you see, no, it's one long story. It's one perfectly planned to the last detail story that is run by Hashem. Even the words Megillat Esther could also mean, Megillah comes from the Hebrew word Megalet. It reveals Esther. Esther comes from the word hidden. It reveals the hidden. This Megillah showed that the hidden hand was Hashem the whole time, behind the scenes, running the show. In our lives, we have to understand. Sometimes you go through things in your life, you don't understand why they're happening. There's no rhyme, there's no reason to it. You didn't do anything wrong to deserve it. And you can't understand, why is God doing this to me? And you wait 6 months. And again, it still doesn't make sense why this happened. And you wait 2 years sometimes. And I still don't understand, why did God do this to me? You have to be patient. You have to be patient. You got to wait for the Megillah to finish. You have to wait for your story to be done. So many people will tell you, they look back at their lives and they see seemingly the worst catastrophes were the greatest thing that could have happened to them. And they see certain challenges that they thought were negative built them. And they see certain times they lost their job and they were falling into despair. I lost my job. How am I going to feed my family? Hashem, where are you? I'm learning Torah, I'm keeping mitzvot, and I lose my job. What's going on over here? You gotta wait for the Megillah to be finished. But what do you mean? I waited 6 months. My new job is even worse than my old job. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. You don't know who you're gonna connect with at your new job. You don't know who's gonna have a positive influence. You don't know what happened because you moved from that area. You have no idea. We have no idea. We don't know the Megillah. We don't have the full story. But that's the lesson of Megillah that said Hashem is running the show the entire time. And I just want to end with one amazing story. The exact opposite of the Holocaust story. That is not, sadly, is not as famous as the Holocaust. I say sadly because when you hear this story, you see that, sometimes you see Hashem is running the show from behind the scenes and just sometimes we just don't realize it. Joseph Stalin, Yimach Shemo v'zichro, dictator of Russia, murdered 20 million of his own people. 20 million. Russia had 3 million Jews at the time. Stalin hated the Jews. Hated them. Was a rabid anti-Semite. He wanted them killed. He had a famous doctor's plot where he accused all the Jewish doctors, a bunch of Jewish doctors, of poisoning the newborn babies and killing them. And Stalin was really someone that was out to get the Jews. Recently, details came to light about his final plan that he had written up. Stalin had a plan to kill Russia's 3 million Jews, to kill every single last one of them. Almost another Holocaust, less than 10 years later. He had a whole plan. He set up 4 concentration camps in 3 different places: Kazakhstan, Siberia, and the Arctic North. I don't know where these places are, but they sound very cold. And that was the point, to put them in a place that was so cold and so hard to get food that eventually they would all die out. And that was Stalin's plan. The week before Purim, 1953, they already set up the train cars to start transporting the Jews all over to these concentration camps. A week before Purim, 1953. The night of Purim, Stalin collapsed. He was in the middle of a rant, and he collapsed on the floor. A few days later, a day before his plot was supposed to have taken effect, it was the day, March 5th, the day before his plan, he died. The plan was canceled. That's Purim. The day of Purim. The day of Purim. Stalin collapsed, never to ever fully recover. And only a few days later, he was dead. A day before, he was set to murder 3 million Jews. We don't understand Hashem's ways. I'm not going to sit there and explain to you why the Holocaust happened. Well, that's not my place, and I don't know the answers. But one thing I do know, Hashem runs the show. And whether you see it or not, He runs the show on a global level, He runs it on a personal level. We control our decisions. That's our control. And don't be like that guy, I ate not kosher today. Why? God must have wanted me to. No. You have your decisions. Your decisions are yours. The other things, Hashem runs. And we have to understand that. We have to understand that Hashem runs the world. And the same way the Holocaust happened, only a few short years later, Hashem rescued us from the brink of another Holocaust. Purim, when did it happen? Coincidentally, on Purim. Hey, that is supposed to teach us this lesson, that there are no coincidences.